Hello everyone. Today I
Am going to finish ranking the new cards coming out in Marvel Snap. I hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, I'm your host D, also known as MTF Doom, and today we're going to be talking about the second half of the cards that are to be released into Marvel Snap. Some of these we talked about yesterday are not probably what they're going to look like as they get released. Most of them probably are, and I have some quick notes. One, we talked about Kitty Pryde yesterday as a card which basically did an imitation of Sunspot, right? For every energy you put into her, you get 2 power out. So she's still not as efficient as just playing cards, but she's more efficient than letting your energy go to waste. And I was like, on that front, like she's as good as Sunspot. Like she'll see some play, maybe not other. Someone pointed out in the comments of that video that I play Bishop Mysterio. What the fuck you talking about, D? This card's incredible. And in Bishop Mysterio, this card is incredible. Because if you play Angela and Bishop, which you play in a lot of those lists, every turn that you play Kitty Pryde, Angela gets +2, Bishop gets +1, and Kitty Pryde gets +2. So suddenly she's a 1/5. Every turn she's worth 5 power that you play her. If you already have that set up, a 2/3, and then Kitty Pryde plus something, Kitty Pryde plus something. So in that sense, she's actually incredible. And I literally had a dream of, Tetris dreams, like when you play a lot of Tetris and then you start dreaming about it. I had a Marvel Snap dream last night that included like, oh, these plays are so good with like playing and pulling back Kitty Pryde. The other thing is that at one point I said Magneto doesn't move 3-drops when we were talking about Blob. Magneto moves 3-drops. What? I don't know what I was thinking. Of course Magneto moves 3-drops. I've literally told stories about how Magneto will pull Bishop and lose them the game because my Bishop is bigger than their Magneto. I've literally told that story on video before. What the fuck? What was I thinking? I don't know. And then the final thing is that I at one point said, again in the Bishop deck, I said, oh, and then you can do something like play Mystique and then into this. I meant Mysterio and I just said Mystique, and that's and someone pointed that out. I really appreciate everyone who points these things out. I really appreciate the levity with which you point them out. Like the softness by which you engage with my content brings me a lot of joy, and I love that this is like a communal positive experience for everyone because of that. So huge shout out to everyone who corrected these things with grace and levity, because the internet isn't always like that. So I appreciate you immensely. I also appreciate anyone who likes and subscribes. Got him. I just dabbed in real life. All right, so we're gonna start where we left off. Lady Deathstroke, a 6/4, again, possibly that stat line I'm a little suspect of for what she does, but we'll see. On reveal, destroy the enemy card with the highest power at this location. That seems really good. Like, Shang is pretty good and gets played a lot. While this does eat your turn 6, this feels a lot like the problem with Old Leader, which is just like it can kind of, I don't know. It's not as bad as Old Leader, but that effect is really strong. It might be good enough, or it might not be good enough. But on average, right, you only have to destroy something that has 8 power for this to be a 6/12 like worth of total stats, and it is not hard to do that. And then anything you get over that, she's just worth more stats. The obvious downside is the one that I've brought up in my "You Should Not Play 6 Cost" video, which is that like she's a 6 cost. Even if it's a really good set of stats for that value, it's only deployed into one lane, and so on that front she might not be good enough. But the effect is really great. If she stays 6, I'll be a little suspicious if she sees any play, but if she even goes down to 5, she'll probably see quite a lot of play. She'll be like the new Arrow. Oh god. All right, never mind. I hope it stays a 6/4. I've talked myself into it. All right. Legion, 5/4 on reveal. Change other locations into this location. I like that. I like that. That's a 5. So you can't just like, Sanctum flips up and you play Legion and you're like, everything's a Sanctum now. I win. Um, like just some nonsense like that. Wait, how would you play him in Sanctum? I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just talking and I don't know what I'm saying. But you get my drift, right? Like the fact that it's 5, so you can't just like make the game abysmal right on turn like 1 or 2 is ideal. Big fan of that. And like again, like so many location changing cards, the stats are like not that good. So I don't know like if this is going to see any play if it were printed like this. I think 5 is the right energy, but I think it could stand to gain a couple points of power. But what do I know? What do I know? This could also just be like a really funny tech card, like, to change all the locations into like negative zone, and you've only played things that have 4+ power and your opponent is flooded out and it's like, all right, well, you lose. Makari, a 0/2. When you draw this, place it at a random location. That seems fine. That's what inverse Umbaku kind of in its own way. It's just a free 2 power, but you don't know where it's going. But I assume it can like get into, like I said, Sanctum. I don't really have proof of that, but like it seems like that's probably what that's getting at, is that like it can just kind of like get put anywhere at random. For the same, I mean, like Cerebro 2 doesn't need any new cards and this probably wouldn't help it, but it is the same idea of like, yeah, whatever, like it just helps you put another 2 power anywhere for Cerebro to buff. Just like Umbaku can like jump out and win you a game because it's actually like a 4 power or 5 power or something. But in general, the 0 costs in this game aren't that good. They're pretty niche. Most of them have some amount of playability just because of like the utility of playing something that costs 0. But this one kind of loses out on the important utility of those cards, which is like lockjaw stuff and doubling the meme deck, the double what is it? It's like double Shuri with Wong, double Forge with Wong, and then Odin, and then Yellow Jacket, right? Jeff Hooglin has a great highlight of that deck working basically exactly once. But the point is, this card doesn't do any of the utility that the normal 0 costs do. Now, if we're talking about Cerebro 2, this is a Cerebro 2 card. So a 2/2 Master Mold. On reveal, add 2 Sentinels to your opponent's hand. That's real, because Sentinels are 2/3s that re-add to your hand. So it limits your opponent's hand size. While if that's all you do, like, usually, all right, there are times where you're going to Maximus because like your opponent is already at like 5 cards, and drawing them up to 7 actually only draws them 1 card because then they don't get their natural draw. So Maximus is like a 3/7 that draws your opponent 1 card, which is just like, that's good. That's fine. This is kind of the same, but if you have a way to re-trigger this on reveal before turn 6, like in a reasonable time frame, you can actually kind of lock your opponent out of like getting any draws. Like you can force them to play just the cards they had. Every turn they have to play a card that's not a Sentinel in order to draw a new card. And any Sentinels that they play don't decrease either hand size. This is like, on the one hand, an absolutely abysmal card to have in the game, because if it gets good, you're just like playing this like lock your opponent out of drawing kind of deck, which is like the worst kind of deck to play against. But at the same time, it's a low enough power level, and like some of the time it's just like, oh yeah, I just gave my opponent ammunition to like fill their curve in with Sentinels once in a while. and the Sentinels themselves beat the Master Mold, so even just one Sentinel is already up power on this. So I think it's really well designed, and it's unfortunate that if it gets good, it's going to be too good, because I really like the card. Mephisto, a 6/0. If you win this game, double your winnings. This is going in Mr. Negative. I'm just going to try to farm 16 cube games with Mr. Negative from now on. This card will see no play outside of that, and we'll see some amount of play. This would almost be worse if it was like a 6/5 or something, like almost. I understand why it has to be a 6/0, but I think because of it, it will only see play in the negative deck, and it will be like it will probably lead to Mr. Negative's like 5th or 6th nerf of his life. Rest in peace, my boy Negative, if this card gets good. But yeah, big fan. Can't wait to absolutely rage quit the game over getting Mephisto'd. Getting my ass Mephisto'd. Alright, we got Mirage, a 4/3 that when you play it, disguise it as a Mr. Fantastic. After the final turn, reveal that it was just Mirage. So Mr. Fantastic is a 3/2 that adds 2 power to each side lane, or each adjacent lane, but you always play him in the middle if possible. And this is a 4/5. So it just changes the math in like a way that can be interesting. But I wish it was a 4/6, so it was the same total power for 1 extra energy. And like a 4/6 is just kind of more reasonable for what you're doing. You know, 4 costs are weird. They're like, I don't know. They're all over the place with power. Some of them are 4/9. Some of them are 4/8. They all have downsides. Some of them have upsides. But like, I feel like a 4/6, like White Queen is a 4/6 with like the minor upside of drawing your highest energy card out of your opponent's hand. This is like a very minor upside. I don't think it's a major upside. But yeah, it changes math. But like, it's fairly rare that your opponent's like, I'm going to be able to beat that lane by 1 power. And then it's like, no, haha. I was down by 2 power the whole time, but I was actually up by 3 over here. It seems like such a minor effect. I don't really know what the fix is. Maybe have it be a range of cards that it could turn into. But then like, what if you have, like, I already don't know how this is going to work if you have Mr. Fantastic in your deck and you play Mirage. Like, did they just see 2 Mr. Fantastics and go, oh, yeah, okay, one of those is Mirage? I don't know. Miss Marvel, 3/4. Ongoing, if this is your only card here, adjacent locations have +5 power. That's cool. That is real cool, right? A something between a Mr. Fantastic and a Namor, and just like, you know, interactable, kind of easy to shut off, which is like unfortunate because Magneto does move 3 costs. If you didn't know, a lot of people don't know this, but Magneto actually moves 3 cost cards, which she is. And so I know it's like a pretty esoteric interaction that not a lot of people are aware of, but he does. And so, you know, she's pretty easy to interact with, but I assume if she goes off, she just like, I don't know, that's really good. 5 power is quite good. If you get her to be the only card in the mid and you just contest the 2 side lanes, that does require all 3 lanes to be like ones you want to fight for, right? Or at least have the middle one only be the one that you're like willing to throw away, but overall quite good. Probably not going to see play because of how interactable she is, but like really like that effect. Nebula, 1/1. On reveal, if your opponent played a card here this turn, double this card's power and put it back in your hand. So a 1/1, if you hit, you know, it's the Deadpool problem. It's kind of worse than the Deadpool problem. Because, you know, you can keep hitting and keep doubling, but like if you miss the first time, she's quite bad, right? Nebula's like pretty bad as a 1/1. The Guardian cards are way better as the game progresses, because you have a much better sense of where your opponent is going to try to play cards. Obviously, if there are locations that are like shut off, if there's a sanctum, your guardian cards are much better, but that's not always going to be the case. Flooding, you can't really flood until turn 4, and that's like, so you're gonna start nebulaing on turn 4, because like, what if they don't even play into flooding? What if they just give it up? You just have a 1/1 nebula stuck in flooding. And then the final part of this is like, again, same with like the Deadpool, is that like, if you've killed Deadpool a sufficient number of times, your opponent's like, okay, well, like, I have Killmonger, so I'll just make sure that they, I'll try to make sure they have priority to the best of my ability. But in the destroy deck, that's usually not that hard, because their cards are really overstated. So it's like, well, now even if you get all of that to go right, you play Deadpool on the last turn, your opponent's like, you know what? Double it and give it to the next guy, Killmonger. And his power doubled again, and now he's stuck in your hand and the game ended. Nebula is even worse, because the same thing can happen, but also on turn 6, you suddenly don't want to play her into a lane your opponent is playing into, so she can't, even if you've hit a bunch of times, she now can't close out the game for you, because your opponent, like, if your opponent plays anything there, it's like, all right, double it and send it back to your hand. You got me. If they add a clause that's like, if this isn't the final turn, double it and return it to your hand, then she'll be as playable as Deadpool in a lot of ways. But if that doesn't happen, I think she's going to be stone unplayable. Negasonic Teenage Warhead. 3/2. After any card is played here, destroy this card and that card. So, if you get an early advantage into a lane and play Negasonic, it can be cool, like, just making your opponent like play off tempo. If it's like a lockjaw deck, they might not even have something small to play into that lane at all. Obviously the downside is like, if they play something that costs less than 3 energy, it's not great. It's not great. And you can't play anything there. So you have to already be ahead, and you have to be pretty sure that you can stay ahead, or that like they can't commit 2 things to get back at you. But I like the effect a lot, but I think it's going to be too niche to actually see any play. Although it's not, maybe, if you have priority on turn 6, this is actually pretty good. But I think outside of that, it gets less good. It's less good as like, now that I'm vocalizing it, it's less good as a tempo play of like, I'm ahead, I'm gonna stay that way, and it's more good as like a turn 6, 3 here, and then like Maximus in another lane, and it's like, how do they overcome both of those? Do they even play around Negasonic? Do they play around it in the right lane? Like, like if they're expecting it in one lane, but it's in the other. So you know what? I'm medium on this card, actually. All right, we got Night Nurse 2/2. On reveal, add all cards you discarded or destroyed last turn to your hand. This will have to be a new deck. If you're thinking, oh yeah, this is great for the discard deck, no, it's not. The discard deck is already playing around the fact that it's going to have to discard cards. Getting those cards back usually doesn't really matter. Like, the destroy deck, it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, we destroyed like Bucky Barnes. I guess I don't know how it works with Deadpool. I know Apocalypse, if you discard him, he doesn't actually count as being discarded. If you've noticed this, because he reappears in your hand, it doesn't count. Whereas Swarm does. Swarm counts as being discarded and adding 2 copies that cost 0. Apocalypse himself just reappears in your hand. It's the same card. It's not a copy that has +4 power. So like, you can't use Night Nurse to double up on Apocalypse, which would only be useful for like playing one and discarding one to Dracula anyway, which wouldn't be like the best use. I guess this is I think the best use case for Night Nurse would be as a tech card if a if an aggressive discard deck, like a deck that forced your opponent to discard, became popular, having Night Nurse at your disposal, but then also she can't get hit by by those discard cards. So like, I don't know. I don't know where you play Night Nurse. I guess that's all I'm gonna say. We got this month's Battle Pass card, Nimrod. 5/5. Oh, if you don't know, Nimrod does not mean idiot, right? Bugs Bunny changed what this word means colloquially, but it is actually a reference to a biblical hunter. When Bugs Bunny called Elmer Fudd Nimrod, he was not calling him stupid. He was sarcastically pretending that he was a great and mighty hunter. It was a biblical reference that no one got, at least no one in like my generation. And so this word became synonymous with very dumb. But that's not what Bugs Bunny was saying, which is just really funny to me. So anyway, we have Nimrod, very stupid connotation. 5/5. When this is destroyed, add a copy to each other location. This card is fine. This card is the exact power level that I want Battle Pass cards to be. If you're doing something interesting with it, it's going to be cool to like, I don't know. It's going to be cool to add Destroyer back to your repertoire. I know there's people who play the Destroyer Spectrum deck. It's like a fine strategy, but it's kind of fallen out of favor. This is really cool. I've seen people that play like Bucky Barnes and Nova in Destroyer, like in the Destroyer Spectrum deck, and actually just like use them as secondary. Like, okay, so you have armor in one lane. Oh, so you have like armor in one lane, and then you have Cosmo in another lane, and then you actually, your opponent's like, okay, so they're gonna either Spectrum over here, or like if they Destroyer, you destroy the Cosmo lane, but it had Nova and Bucky Barnes, and then the armor lane stays alive. And now you've committed power to all three lanes, which is kind of unusual for that deck. Nimrod does the same thing. Nimrod is like, okay, cool. Now you can like, Destroyer into the Nimrod lane and then add power to the other two lanes. That's cool. There's all kinds of like, this fits into so many decks that like just have like ways to sometimes destroy a card that I really like it. I really like that it's just got uses. It's just like, like what we just talked about with Negasonic. It's not like one deck that you're just going to like beat people with, like, oh, you just put it and it just makes this deck so much better. It just goes in a bunch of decks and is like a reasonable tech card that sometimes gets your opponent because they weren't expecting it to do this. And that's cool. That's like my favorite type of card. We got Random. A 4/0 on reveal. Set this card's power equal to the power of a random card in your deck. As if Lockjaw needed more tools. I don't know if Lockjaw's actually going to end up playing this, but the high roll deck didn't really have enough high roll cards, right? It's like Jubilee, Lockjaw as like an enabler, and obviously it lets you shuffle your low cards back in. Morph, no one plays Morph, and Morph is like really, that's a cool design. Like, obviously it's like kind of unplayable. Random is kind of the same, but you have a little more of like control over what the number is actually going to be. You know what? I'd love to see Random as a tool in the like Cerebro 7 list. That would be cool, but it could still hit Cerebro and be a 0, so I have no idea if that's possible. Red Guardian 3/6. On reveal, you must play a card here next turn. I wonder if that must is like a hard must. Like if you have a 4 cost and nothing else, if the game's literally going to like ego it onto the field, or if it's like in Magic, it's called fail to find. If you can basically just skip your turn 4, if you have like, I don't know, a Sunspot, and you can just be like, all right, whatever, I'm just going to feed Sunspot 4 energy and not give Red Guardian like a second card here. But also it's the same as like the Negasonic problem in reverse, which is like if your turn 4 was just going to be a 1 cost and a 3 cost anyway, it's not that bad most of the time to just commit the 1 cost to the Red Guardian lane. Um, you know, it it's slightly limiting, but it's not super limiting. And a 3/6 is like a pretty good stat line in a lot of ways. This competes with, Swordmaster. Is this downside worse than discarding a card? Well, like on turn 6, they're both equally they're the exact same in a lot of ways because like it just doesn't matter. There's not a next turn. Your hand doesn't really matter. But before that, like on turn 3, if you're like pressed for a turn 3 play, I think Red Guardian's better in more situations than Swordmaster. So I think this is going to end up being like a mid-range deck and not like Swordmaster goes in the discard deck. This is going to be like a mid-range threat, and it's pretty good for that. It probably won't see play because it's like just a very fair card, but I like it. Big fan. All right, we got Silk, 2/5. Big fan of that stat line. After any card is played here, this moves to another location. So it is Titania, but left and right instead of forward and back. It's the Lizard of Titanias, if you will. That's not really accurate. Really cool. Obviously ways of actually abusing this and having it be an upside, but also a lot of ways in which it can mess you up. But also, like Titania, I think it's more about how you learn to play with it than it itself being good or bad. And like Titania, I think learning the ins and outs of how to manipulate Silk into doing what you want is very valuable to you as a player, and I'm a big fan of that. A little less disruptive than Titania can be, because one of my favorite things is like forcing an opponent to hold this friend, and then like taking it back on turn 6, having filled up their lane in the meantime. But yeah, this is cool. You can't really play. You can't play 3 cards into any given lane until turn 6 with this. So it sort of functionally limits your lanes to being only 2 cards, which is like quite a limitation, but only until turn 6. And the 2/5 stat line is probably worth it. And again, the fact that it can get into like Sanctum or Luke's Bar or whatever is also probably worth it. This card's going to be really cool to play with. Silver Sable, 2/6. You can only play this at a location where you have 6+ total power. So that's pretty easy to hit. It's not 6 more power than your opponent. This is like a really low bar. And like, you're probably going to want to play this like as a gotcha card, like Maximus, in the late game. I love this card. I honestly, I think that this might not be enough of a drawback for how good a 2/6 is. If you haven't played with like 2/6s, like cards that are just like way overstated like this is dangerous. This is probably gonna make the Moon Girl Storm, like Mojo Storm list, like really good. I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this card a lot. I hope this doesn't see any changes and just gets implemented like that. All right, Silver Surfer Samur Surfer, Silver Samurai, 1/2. When this card is discarded from your hand, draw a card. That's cool. It's gonna see play. The discard decks usually want very specific cards, so it's just like pitch this, increase your, it's good. It's good. It's it's like what we talked about up there, the Black Knight and the Angel. Just they reduce your deck size by 1. This just reduces your deck size by 1. Those types of cards are always good if there's any deck that has like a critical mass of combo pieces that's already doing this. And discard definitely falls into that category. Or certain, like, you could build a discard list that does fall into that category. Let me say it like that. Snowguard, 1/2. While in your hand, this transforms each turn into a hawk or bear. And I think those, yeah. Are they released? All right. Maybe not. Nah, they're not released. And now this is going to reset, isn't it? No, it didn't. Oh, yes, it did. Oh, no. Technical difficulties. Hang on. Oh, if you don't know, this is how you find unreleased cards. You uncheck everything except for no, not available, and no way of getting it. Stuff like that. All right, depending on what a hawk and a bear, I've seen the hawk and the bear like cards because I've seen someone else cover this. I just don't remember what they do off the top of my head. Stegron. 4/5. On reveal, move an enemy card from here to another location. So it's like Juggernaut, but a little better in some ways. It's also slightly above vanilla. Well, 4/5 is like, we talked about this. 4s are in a weird spot for what their power should even be. Move an enemy card from here. That's great. That's really good. I really like that. I'm going to play with this card. I think this is reasonable at 4/5. I think that on reveal is good. I like this card a lot, and it's the type of disruption that's interesting to me. You know, it piques my interest without being like, you know, just the best type of interruption. Big fan of that design. Strife. 3/7, love the 3/7s. Y'all know me. 3/7. If your opponent has 12 plus power here, at the end of any turn, destroy this. Hate this card. Awful card. I love 3/7s and I hate that. Suitor? 5/0. If you move the Human Torch to this location plus 10 power, that seems bad. Like, don't play the Human Torch. Human Torch is bad. Don't play him. This is bad. Don't try to pull this off. I also hate this design. I hate cards that specify one other card. That's a Yu-Gi-Oh ass design, and I hate it. Don't do this, Second Dinner. Don't release this card. The Living Tribunal, a 6/4. At the end of the game, split your total power evenly among all locations. I like this card a lot. I think 6/4 is just about the right stats for it even. Obviously, it has to be a 6 because of, like, the type of card that it is. Like, 4 is probably good. You know, it could be less than that, but we got into the problem of it being too good in Mr. Negative decks. And honestly, a negative deck would be really funny with this because you could double stack your Iron Man Mystique stuff going on. This card is really cool. In a weird way, it kind of does the same thing as Galactus. It's like, it's the same but different. I think this is better for the game because it doesn't have those, like, abysmal, like, wave into Galactus into, like, Spider-Man. It's just like, oh, cool, I'm locked out of playing the game. This is very fun. You know, the worst types of feelings. This is like, all right, well, you know, they're playing, their power matters differently, but, like, ultimately I still got to play the whole game. Even if I don't win, it feels more like I got to play a game of Marvel Snapping. So I like this. It's also probably just going to be pool 5 forever and I'll never get to play with it. So, you know, I'm just resigned to saying it's fine because, like, it'll never apply to me. We got a 6/3 Phoenix Force. On reveal, revive one of your destroyed cards with plus 5 power. If it's probably, who is the Phoenix? Is it Jean Grey? Is that? Yeah, I think that's she was the Phoenix or the Dark Phoenix. I don't know Marvel. So again, this falls into the naming a card specifically, which I hate, convention. If this just said revive one of your destroyed cards with plus 5 power, I would really like this card, right? Like, it's only a 6/8. You know, basically you have to be more discerning about what you're destroying. It doesn't just go in a destroy deck. It goes, this is just like this is like the Ghost Rider of destroy cards, you know? Suddenly you can't just willy-nilly start pitching cards and destroying cards with Ghost Rider, right, in this. But I really like that. I hate this second part. Drop it. Second Dinner, stop this. Stop trying to be Yu-Gi-Oh! You're not Yu-Gi-Oh! You're better than that. All right, Toad, 2-3. On reveal, move the last card you played to this location. If this doesn't play an animation of the the Toad doing like a Yoshi, then I'm not interested, okay? If it doesn't tongue grab that last card, not interested. If it does, 10 out of 10. Uncle Ben, 1-2. When this card is destroyed, add Spider-Man to your hand. The first time I saw this card, I thought it was a meme card. I still kind of think it's a meme card. 10 out of 10 lore design, but like, why? Like, Spider-Man isn't that good a card. Like, it's not. It's like this is the same as every other destroy fodder card, right? Like, the thing about the destroyed X's we brought up last episode is that like the one costs hardly matter because all you're doing is eating them with carnage. Like, who cares which one cost gets killmongered in a lot of ways. This one just does less than like Nova or Hood most of the time. Like, for what you're trying to do, you don't really care so much about Spider-Man. You would want a Nova going off, or you would want the Hood to give you the demon way more than you'd want like a Spider-Man. So like, if there's a deck that just needs a bunch of Spider-Man cards, fine. But like, we already had that deck and it was abysmal, the Spider-Man Absorbing Man. So like, this card is just like, this isn't good. This isn't good for the game. This has the same problem as some stuff we've mentioned before. If this gets good, then the game is in a really bad spot. Viv Vision, 2-3. When you move a card to a location, move this card there as well. Okay, so it just follows your other cards around. That's cool. I like that. I like that more than I liked the other movement card, the one that just gained 1 power or 1 energy. No, 1 power every time you moved it. Cuz this just, like, you know, if you need the Craven movement stuff, like, this just adds +1 card having moved to the Craven count. And yeah, it's, you know, I don't really think it's what that deck wants. But it is interesting, and it's cool to be able to do neat stuff with like Iron Fist. Like, this is already in a lane, and then you Iron Fist, and then your next card gets moved, but then also yoinks that and like moves it over here. You understand what I'm saying with my cursor, right? So it's very neat. I like this. Just like, it's good stats. It's nice and average stats. It's not gonna like completely obliterate an opponent because it's like, you know, a 4/8 that's like just yeeting itself around the battlefield. Like, I don't know where that thing's gonna end up, but it's like, it's a solid addition. I like it that it increases the breadth of that deck, but not the depth, right? It doesn't make it taller and more powerful, but it makes it able to be expressed by the player, and that's good design. War Machine, 4/5. Ongoing, your 1 cost cards have +1 power. Your 1 cost cards have... Wait. Isn't that just Khazar? Your 1 cost cards have +1... That's literally just Khazar, right? Okay, so this one's got to be... This one, like, I assume has to be... There has to be something different about this card, because that's literally just Khazar, but with +1 power. Wait, does Khazar give them +2? Is that what it is? No, I don't think so. This is weird. We're not going to comment on that. I mean, it's fine. Like, Zoo decks are completely reasonable plays, so if this is just what it does, it's fine, and it'll definitely see some amount of play, but I don't think this is worth commenting on, because I don't think that's what it's going to do. Witchfire, 2/3. On reveal, your opponent draws a card, increases its cost by 1. I took a quick look over this list before I started yesterday, and I was like really confused because Baron Mordo already exists and just sets the cost to 6 of whatever they draw, and I was like, this is worse. But it doesn't say max 6, which, like, Iceman says, you know, increase the cost of a card in your opponent's hand, maximum 6. This doesn't say that, so I think this might have the added bonus of sometimes making your opponent's 6 cost cards unplayable, which is hilarious to me. So Just like Baron Mordo, probably won't see any play because giving your opponent a card, even if it costs one more, is like generally not very good. But might see some play on the fact that it can make something unplayable and just really salt your opponent off the face of the earth. 3/3 X23. When this card is discarded from your hand, put it back. It costs 0. This card will absolutely fit into some deck, right? Any deck that's already playing Swarm is like gonna play this almost for sure. Although I say that, but like what's his name? Doesn't Sabretooth do the same thing? If Sabretooth doesn't see, maybe Sabretooth just destroy, not discard. But you know, the Swarm decks, this is just good in the same kind of, you know, the same kind of way. The only downside is it costs 3, and if you're pitching Swarm to like Colleen Wing, this costing 3 is a big downside. But if you're doing like MODOK stuff and you're just like, basically cards, the more cards that get printed that say stuff like this, the better MODOK is going to become, because you just need a critical mass of good hits for MODOK to pitch for him to be good. Right now he's like okay, but he's not good. But the more cards like this that get printed, the better and better and better he gets. Basically, if you can hit like, you know, reasonably hit 2 or 3 cards that all replace themselves or do something cool when they discard, suddenly MODOK is like pretty good. And finally, we have Yo-Yo, a 1/2. When this card moves, move it back with +1 power. That's very neat, like as far as the name goes. I like that effect. I don't think it'll be good enough when, yeah, that's worse than Human Torch, which is already pretty bad, right? Like, so much has to go right for this to happen. I don't think that triggers twice. I think it moves, it gets 1 power and then moves back. It doesn't get 1 on moving again. But even if it did, it wouldn't be playable. Okay. We made it through. I know this one was even longer than yesterday's. One of the comments I got yesterday was that the video should have been 8 minutes long, which is, I don't think I could have done it in 8 minutes. I was trying to rush through this one and we hit 40 some odd minutes. So I don't think, let's see what the masses say. This one should have been 4 minutes. You spent 10 times too long, and it's all because you kept saying so I tried to rush through it and still give you, you know, quality input. Thank you all. I'm sure in the comments down below, I'm going to get a bunch of more really good input about stuff that I missed with all this. Cause of course, like this is a cooperative experience. I want to hear from you. I want to know the things that I might have missed, the corner cases, the fringes. So if you have any of that, please leave it below. And also, as always, if you find my content elucidating, enlightening, or enriching, the best way to let me know is with a subscription and a comment and maybe even a Discord join. No, you need a little Discord. We got a lot going on in Discord right now. I hope that you have a great day, and I will see you all tomorrow.